Hi, I want to talk about some ideas about happiness and why it has become so important to a lot of people. I think that in United States, if there was an economic collapse and there wasn't a lot of money coming in, then a lot of people will not die from hunger or from EMP. They would die first from not getting their antidepressants. Like a lot of Americans, they're mentally sick. They take many different forms of drugs, like opiates, antidepressants. A lot of them are also on meth and cocaine and pot. Pot is almost legal. Well, I don't think if it was up to me, I would legalize some of the drugs like pot. I don't know about cocaine and what consequences it has. I never took it, or meth. Well, meth is really bad, has consequences. But the reason people take all these drugs because they are looking for happiness. Like something like a pill would come in, boom, it will change everything. The way the happiness, the way they define it to be, would make it happy for a few hours or a day, and then they're back again to their real self, and then. But there is a lot of philosophical discussions, and I used to not care about these ideas because I didn't have any problems with unhappiness until I met my ex and I lived with her for a while. Then I knew what unhappiness is. But a lot of this concept of happiness is not in a pill form. It's really in your head and your attitude of how you perceive things or you perceive life. Well, actually, uh, uh, this discussion is kind of really convoluted. You gotta really know a bit of deep philosophy, but every generation of young people, they grow older. As they mature, they color the world by their consciousness. Like the way the culture of a particular group is, it colors that society and the values that it perceives are important. And this act of looking at the world in a certain way, it imparts energies even to the stuff that's all around you, in the furniture, in the walls, in the so places that were built like in the 1950s, 1940s, or if they were built in the 1800s, 1900s, they have a certain energy. Somebody who's a psychic comes there, it kind of picks that up right away. It feels like you are in that time, or those people are still alive, and everything is like that. But it is not. It's just the consciousness imparted those energies. But then again, your consciousness is the part of you that belongs to you, and so you can manipulate this and make it whatever you want. Well, I'm not saying that you're Jesus and you can look at water and make it into wine. Okay, that's a really superior kind of consciousness that can do that. But ordinary people can can make the decision. I have made that decision. I'm gonna be happy no matter what is going on. Like if there is a nuclear bomb hits the United States, well, I'm gonna be happy until the nuclear waves blast me away. I mean, this is a decision that I can make because the consciousness that I have, it belongs to me. And I make that conscious decision that I'm not going to let considerations for money or sex or having someone or not having someone or the way or my job or the way the place is or if my car breaks down. These decisions doesn't belong to circumstances. It doesn't belong to the society. It doesn't belong to a group that's there and they're looking at me as a certain way or I'm looking at them. It exclusively belongs to me because that's the consciousness part where I experience happiness. It is my exclusive domain. I can make those decisions and stick with them no matter what happens. So I mean that's a given for me, but I get besieged because there are many people out there, and many people when they get the feeling that somebody is psychic or it might be a spiritual teacher or some kind of teacher or a therapist, then all this behavior comes out, you know. So I get a lot of people that have really mental problems. They're supposed to be going to professional therapists. I'm not in any way qualified to help them, or but because there's like on and on, all this stuff comes at me, and it has been going on through many years. So I kind of like have been thinking about it, and I've tried to develop some strategies to deal with these things that are to me they are strange, but to people they are real things. Well, I want to start with a couple of people that they have passed away, and they were very unhappy in certain ways. I want to talk about a friend of mine. He was a Hollywood director, and after he passed away, his wife or his girlfriend told me that it was very difficult to live with him, and he had deep depression, like, and then he was kind of wealthy, and he had a lot of money coming to him from his mother. When he passed away, he wasn't really poor, but he didn't have the money with him, so he had to stop taking antidepressants. So the depression came back to him, and he didn't have any skills of dealing with it. So the last time I saw him, I had taken him and his girlfriend to, I think it was she was going for some kind of medical exam, and I was talking to him. We were talking, and we were arguing over CO2 emissions of cars. He was against using gasoline. He was starting to walk around all the time, but then I looked at him, and some psychics, they can tell if a person is going to pass away. It felt like that he had faded away. Like, have you seen a picture? And I look at some pictures of people, and I know this person has passed away. But when I was looking at him, it felt like a picture that has lost some of its shade or has faded away. So I knew something was up. I kind of delayed. I kept talking to him and tried to dissuade him. He was doing some other stuff too. So what I'm saying is that instead of thinking about environmental crap and why he wasn't happy with the way the environment was going and the car emissions, instead of he should have looked his own consciousness and see that he was deeply unhappy, and this unhappiness he was justifying it by what was going on in the environment. But he could make the decision even then not to be unhappy, or decide to be happy regardless of whether there was antidepressant or there were environmental problems. The problem was in his consciousness. He hadn't made that decision that not to let the events in the world or whatever that's going on be a determining factor in what he wanted to do. Anyhow, the other person is my dad, and he had diabetes, and his diabetes became a heart problem too, and he passed away. My mom was telling me that he was very difficult to live with him towards the end. She was struggling very much. What he wanted to do is that he was rebelling against the fact that he was diabetic, and he had to take insulin, had to take pills, had to exercise, had to live a different lifestyle. And he had this image of himself, of the ideal, like he was in his 18 to a very healthy, very handsome, very this and that. And this image or self-image was crumbling because he had very serious physical problems that were genetic, weren't even his problems. It's the exact same thing with me. But then what I'm trying to say, he was projecting what was in his brain of what the world or what his health or what his life should be, in contrast to what it actually was. Okay, so when people don't accept reality and they have this image of what Mr. Samad would have to look like versus what he actually is, then there is a huge conflict. It creates unhappiness and rebellion, not accepting the world, and also probably depression. But I don't think my dad had depression like my friend. But then this whole discussion brings us to another topic, is that this very forceful way of projecting what you think you should be versus what it actually is a big problem. Well, in the last lecture, the Sufi master was talking about how some people think that, oh my God, if I was sitting next to Einstein, or if I was in one of the friends of Prophet Muhammad himself, how my life would be so different. What accomplishments would I have had done? Like, I would be in history books, which is not true, because what accomplishment that you did, it comes from your own self, your own genes, your own talents. Had nothing to do with Einstein or Prophet Muhammad or Jesus Christ. But this persistence of forcefully trying to modify the outside world and making into something that your image implies that it should be like that, this is a big problem. This is actually the source of on happiness. But on the other hand, if you accept that you're human, you're limited, and what you had in your life, it wasn't really that bad, and many people that lived life went through pretty much the same thing, and actually all the sources of happiness and or unhappiness are in this personal experiences. They are not outside in some kind of environment or some kind of history. Then that kind of like a release. You don't have to take antidepressants or to justify something or other. I don't know why in the United States, and I meet a lot of people, they feel to be a failure, and that they should have been something else. They should have been a general. I think I should have been a general, but I really don't like that very much. I never liked being in the or going to military or any kind of thing like that. When I was younger, I really liked to study or become a scientist or a researcher, which pretty much is what has happened. And I never thought much about marriage and stuff, but later on it became important. But then later on, my marriages were all a hell of a mess. So, I just took it as it came. And I guess some people are like that. The life is like an adventure. You just go from scene to scene. You don't make plans, too many plans, and you just enjoy what's there already, or live it spontaneously. But then some people, or a lot of people, I think half the population is they make plans, and if if the plans don't work out, then watch out. They'll either turn on other people or turn on themselves and start evaluating and criticizing and condemning self, and then we have all these other consequences. Well, there's a lot of sayings by Sufi master. There's some sayings from Imam Ali. I don't know what Jesus might have said. I know some one from Abraham Lincoln. I just gonna go through some of these sayings. I also know one from Immanuel Kant, the philosopher. I'm gonna just go through some of them, and you should kind of take these as kind of like a hint that a lot of things are in your own hands. They're not something that somebody constructed. And then finally, if someone or something is constructing a reality and oppressing you, there is a verse in Quran. It says that God's earth is very big, very expansive, and seek thy bounty elsewhere, which means that at that time the Prophet advised many Muslims to move out of Mecca because there was a lot of oppression. But this advice doesn't have to be for those times. You can, if in a place, a government or a institution or a friends or a family or anything, a culture is oppressive, is doing stupid stuff, makes you unhappy, you don't owe them anything. In fact, because the economic welfare of many people in even foreign countries has improved, most of the time it takes a bus pass. There is a rock and roll song. It says there are 50 ways to leave your lover. There are probably like 50,000 ways of leaving things that make you miserable, torment you. individuals that pursue you, governments, internet could be shut off on your side, right? Or many things, or you could cut back on things that torment you, and you don't have to take as many antidepressants. There are some herbs that help with what their effect is temporary, is not very fast, or doesn't last very long. I know that I buy St. John's wort extract, and I use it, but not for depression. But there has been some studies that shows that this herb is just as good as taking antidepressants. Well, I buy them in a liquid form, and then I use a cold soda or something and put in a few drops. There is other herbs. Let me go through a list. There is one that is skipping my mind right now. I think I'm in the earliest stage of Alzheimer. Well, let me go through that list. Abraham Lincoln said that your happiness is up to you. How much you want to be, how happy you want to be. The Sufi master said that life is like you are a barber, and you have the scissor and the comb, and you can cut your own beard and your hair any way you want. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Imam Ali said that life is like a date tree, and a moment a believer sits by the date tree and waits for the dates when they are ripe, and they just fell off the tree, to catch them in the middle of the air. That means that you can catch grace, you can catch happiness, catch a nice next wife, if you watch the world and you are receptive to good things of the world instead of things that torment you. Then Prophet Muhammad, the Quran says that seek thy bounty elsewhere. Don't let things torment you. I think Bible says that not to be too concerned with, not to torment yourself by the concerns or worldly concerns. Not let them be a defining thing in your life. There is more spiritual or better things elsewhere than these concerns. You shouldn't really let these things overwhelm you. Well, I had